Welcome to AskFOI, where we answer the most common questions we receive at the Friends of Israel on Prophecy, Israel in the Bible. Ty Perry is my guest today. Welcome, Ty.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for having me today.
Ty, you write a recurring column in Israel My Glory, that's the Friends of Israel's magazine, on anti-Semitism. You've seen anti-Semitism. You've seen the effects of it. This term gets used a lot, but I think it's important to actually define what it is. It's a term that I don't hear defined often. So let's clear that up and let's define it. What is anti-Semitism and where did it come from?
Sure. Well, there are a variety of technical definitions for it, but I think the most simple and straightforward way of answering it is saying that anti-Semitism is an animosity toward or hatred of the Jewish people. And so it manifests itself in many different ways, but fundamentally, it is a hatred of God's chosen people, the Jewish people. And it comes, as you asked, it comes from a couple of different places. I think we first need to understand, where does the term come from? And that's from, it was first coined in 1879 by a German journalist and political agitator named Wilhelm Marr, who wrote a book on the influence of the Jewish people on Germany, and he thought it was a very negative thing. And so he came at it from a political perspective and coined the term anti-Semitism to describe his view of the Jewish people. But really, the as an instinct or even as a philosophy, the hatred of the Jewish people is as old as the Jewish people themselves. So certainly there was anti-Semitism on the part of Pharaoh, the Pharaoh of the Exodus to some extent. We saw it with Amalek as he came against Israel as they're fleeing, they're going into or out of Egypt in their wilderness journeys, and he attacks the Jewish people, the weakest actually among them. Haman in the book of Esther tries to enact a genocide of the Jewish people of Persia. And even in the Greek period, we see it with Antiochus Epiphanes, who tries to force the Jewish people of Israel to become Greek through a process known as Hellenization, where he tries to ban the reading of the Torah, the circumcision of little boys, basically to keep Jewish people from being Jewish. And he killed many hundreds of Jewish people in the process. So anti-Semitism as an instinct is very old. Biblically, though, I think it comes from the Garden of Eden, and that's really the where we need to go to find the root of it. If we think about it, particularly in Genesis 3, we have the promise of a redeemer. Actually, the word that's used there is, or the term is, one who is going to crush the head of the serpent. So this promised head crusher is promised actually not to Adam and Eve as much as it is to the serpent, who I think later in the New Testament is identified as Satan himself. And so from the time that God makes that promise, there is an awareness on the part of the serpent that his end is coming soon. And so throughout biblical history, you see really a narrowing down or a funneling down of who this promised one is going to be and from which people he will come. So you have from Eve to Seth, eventually to Noah, to one of his three sons, Shem. And that's actually where the term anti-Semitism comes from. It's the hatred of Shem's descendants, specifically the Jewish people. And this is really where anti-Semitism comes from fundamentally, from a biblical perspective.
So I'm curious to hear how you would respond to Christian responsibility to stand against anti-Semitism. You know, we know Jesus himself in Matthew 25 talks about what you've done to the least of these, my brethren, and I believe he's speaking of ethnic Jewish people, his ethnic brothers and sisters. What you've done to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you've done to me. What's our responsibility as Christians? Because we might have some that look at it as they're not the people of the Bible, or that they've taken the promises or that the promises were removed from them. How should we feel responsible as Christians to stand with them?
Well, we should understand that that the God who says in Genesis 12:3 that he will bless those who bless Abram and his descendants and curse those who curse them is the same God incarnate in Matthew 25 who makes that statement. And so God is remarkably consistent in everything he says. And so this principle of blessing for those who are seek the welfare and bless the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is something that we see all throughout the scriptures. And so today, that should be a priority for Christians, that we should be the foremost friend of the Jewish people. That does not mean that we endorse everything every Jewish person does any more than we endorse everything every evangelical Christian does. We certainly wouldn't do that. But evangelical Christians, Bible-believing Christians, cannot tolerate anti-Semitism. We must speak out against it when we hear it or when we see it happening. We must stand up for our Jewish friends and for the Jewish community, because really actively standing against anti-Semitism is one of the fruits of a biblically rooted worldview. I was talking with a Jewish friend about this a while ago. He said, I don't understand why is it that Bible-believing Christians care to stand with us? And I said, really it comes down not only to an appreciation for all your people have done for our country and Western civilization, but fundamentally it comes down to the fact that we have been blessed by your people. And so we throw in our hat with you when you are persecuted. We are going to stand up for you, and if it requires us to be persecuted ourselves, then we will accept that, and we want to make sure that we're a blessing to your people. And so I think, in answer to your question, Steve, Christians need to not sit idly by and witness anti-Semitism, but we need to stand up for our Jewish friends and testify of what the scriptures say about God's love for this people and of how he promises to really bring on those who hate the Jewish people in Israel some of the same curses that they put on them.
Yeah, and the promises that he has given to the Jewish people, they are still in effect. There's still a land, there's still a promise, and God put his name in Jerusalem. So we have an expectation for the future for the Jewish people, don't we?
We do. And I think that's fundamentally the reason for anti-Semitism is that promised Redeemer, that promised head crusher, represents a great threat to Satan and his plans. And if he can keep God from fulfilling all of the promises that he has made to Israel that will be fulfilled through the reign and rule of the Messiah when he returns, then Satan can keep God from being God. We know that's not going to happen, but that doesn't stop him from doing that. And so our standing against anti-Semitism is intimately connected to those promises that God has made to the Jewish people.
That's well said. Thank you, Ty.
Thank you, Steve.